I am your best friend. I am your only friend. I am your best friend. It's D. Scott Crook. Welcome back to HR's Best Friend, our podcast for HR professionals and business leaders who want to make sure they stay compliant, don't get in trouble, and keep their employees happy. D. Scott Crook is the Utah employment lawyer. He's consistently listed in Rocky Mountain Super Lawyers and Best Lawyers in America. He is the managing partner of Crook Legal Group. Scott is only licensed to practice law in Utah and Idaho. He is not giving specific legal advice. This shouldn't be construed as legal advice for your problem. If you need specific legal advice, please go to an attorney, preferably this attorney. Welcome back to HR's Best Friend.
Thank you. I am glad to be.
I actually wasn't welcoming you back because you're a co-host. I was welcoming back our loyal audience.
Okay. I apologize for saying thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Let's dive in. Today is the Christmas episode. And you can see the snow. You can see the snow behind me because it didn't even occur to me till right now that I should try and get a Christmassy background. But
well, that's okay. Let's see. Let me see. Oh. Here is a Santa Claus train coming towards you.
Wow. I hope you're watching this on YouTube and not listening because that was quite an experience.
Here he comes again. Okay.
Yeah, make sure we publish this to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube.
For your description, it was a miniature train with Santa as the engineer, and I was making it go towards the camera so as to scare our listening audience.
So if you want to experience that instead of just the description, oh, you did it again. You can watch us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because and then he hit the microphone.
Yeah. Sorry.
So that is it's okay. So anyway, check us out on YouTube because we're both very good looking too. Anyway.
Well, you are.
I know. Moving forward. So it's going to be pretty fun. We are going to get to some Facebook Reddit questions that are all Christmas holiday party themed. So that'll be good. But before that, we're going to play illegal, actionable, immoral, or normal with Santa's workshop, assuming that it was in Utah and not the North Pole.
I hope I don't end up on a naughty list with my answers. So,
well, you're probably already there.
Yeah, that's true. I am a lawyer.
So we're assuming that the North Pole is actually Utah. So let's dig in here. I have some questions. Sometimes Santa is depicted as employing pre-adolescent elves in his workshop, notably in The Santa Claus starring Tim Allen. Now, you may say, James, they're pretty clear in the movie that they're actually all very old, but they just look like children. Well, maybe that's just what they want you to think. We're going to assume that they are actually children. So, Father is in what are the can you employ pre-adolescent people? Period. If you can, what are the rules? So is this illegal, actionable, immoral, and or normal?
And that's a really broad question. So under the Fair Labor Standards Act, there are child welfare restrictions on who can be employed. Generally, and there are exceptions, like if you own a farm, if you are a solo or a family-owned business, there may be some exceptions. So just know, generally, you can't employ anybody under the age of 14. And then anyone between the ages of 14 and 16 have real significant restrictions on their work. So, for instance, during the school year, they can't work past 7 p.m. at night. They can't work more than a certain number of hours, which generally I believe it's 20, but I could be wrong. I have to go back and look. They're very specific. They can't use dangerous things. So, like a 14-year-old can't put the French fries in the fat fryer. You'll get in trouble for that. And then when they're older than 16, there are less restrictions. But there are still restrictions.
Okay, so do you think Santa and his workshop apply for any of these exceptions that you mentioned?
Well, considering that pre-adolescent means usually before 14, I'm sorry, Santa. If, in fact, the elves are under 14, he's probably in trouble. And if they're over 14 but below 16 and they're working at night and they're working all day,
Yeah,
they're
that's
breaking all
exactly what they're doing. They are Santa's elves.
then yeah, you're violating the child labor statutes of the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Okay,
So he's in
so
trouble.
now would the children band together to sue him, or would their parents do that?
Well, considering most children, children aren't of the age of majority, so they can't represent themselves. They can't even enter into contracts generally. The parents would have to sue on their behalf, but the Department of Labor would probably take that case, and the Department of Labor would probably enforce against, and they'd probably show up to Santa's workshop with showing their badges and saying, "Hey, we want to come in and interview all the elves, and we need you to give us we need you to give us your payroll records and your timesheets."
Okay, well, it's good that you mentioned payroll records, because my next questions are related to wages.
Okay.
In some stories, elves are depicted as magical beings who don't have the same needs as humans. Their compensation might not be in the form of traditional wages, but rather in the joy and magic they receive from creating toys and helping Santa. So the question is, can a Utah employer compensate someone not in money, but in the joy they receive from their work?
And the answer to that is no. They have to be compensated. Now there can be compensation other than in cash. Like you can do things like we talked last week about, you can provide housing, you can provide meals, and you can get credits for that, but it's always it's equated back to cash anyway in order to determine whether you're meeting the minimum wage requirements.
Let's move on to my next question, which is no time off or breaks. The work in Santa's workshop is depicted as a year-round endeavor, with different phases from planning and design to production and distribution. They're not taking breaks. They don't get days off. Can a Utah employer do that? Can Santa do that to his elves?
Yeah, and the answer is yes.
Huh?
There's no law that requires you to give a break. That doesn't make sense to not give breaks, but there is, again, the Fair Labor Standards Act though says if you give a break of longer than 15 minutes or less than 15 minutes, you have to compensate for that break. And anything longer than that, as long as an employee is not required to work during that break and is not required to stay or at a workstation, you cannot pay them during that break period.
Okay, but so does that mean you can work people 24/7?
You could. It wouldn't make
Really?
any sense.
There's no, yeah, well, forget the logic of it. You're saying that there's nothing illegal, actionable, There's nothing illegal or actionable about working the elves 24/7 with no breaks, no days off. So they don't even
Not
sleep.
under the law, but there are certain, like for instance, doctors in hospitals, they have certain professional standards that they have to give certain breaks. And if you worked, like if you were a trucker, you can't, the Utah Department of, I mean, the Federal Department of Transportation will say you have to have certain rest periods, just like the FAA. So there are regulations over different industries, but generally, if an employer wanted to require an employee to work 24 hours, not give them any breaks, they would not be violating any law. Now, they tangentially, they could be, violating OSHA if they're not, if something is hazardous and they're requiring their employees to do it. But yeah, generally,
But
no.
they're just doing what Will Ferrell was doing in Elf and testing the, Jack in the Boxes, right?
Yeah.
You could require that person to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the entire year, and just assume they don't need to sleep. So, okay, interesting. There's nothing illegal or actionable in this basic concept that they're doing. But
Right.
would you consider that immoral or normal, though?
I would
Which one
not
is
consider it normal, and I would consider it immoral. Yes.
okay?
I am unaware of anyone who requires somebody to work 24 hours a day. But there are 24-hour shifts, like,
Yeah, no,
ambulance drivers and
I get,
stuff,
I
but they,
no, I get that,
they're
but
paid to sleep. They're paid to sleep and paid to eat and everything. So
right, but okay. Well, Santa dodges a bullet on that one.
yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, so there's our Santa's workshop. Illegal, actionable, immoral, or normal. That's funny. Okay, Facebook, Reddit / Reddit questions. So some of these are employment law specific, and some of them are, just your wisdom as the Utah employment lawyer would be good. So here's one. This came from a Facebook group. It's the holiday season in HR, and you know what that means. What is your opinion on terminating an employee before Christmas? For example, the company has done the correct process, several corrective actions, performance improvement plans, etc., and the employee has not improved and continues to have performance issues. It's now mid-December, and the manager comes to you wanting action. Are you waiting until after Christmas, or are you making the recommendation to terminate immediately? This person says, I would recommend termination immediately. Waiting until after Christmas may seem like the right thing to do, but is it? We're delaying the inevitable and not giving the employee the gift of transparency so they can start preparing for the future. This may label me as a Grinch, but I believe it is best practice. So I doubt that there's anything specifically illegal or actionable around this, but as the Utah employment lawyer, what would your recommended best practice be?
Well, as with everything, it depends. Obviously, if the person's causing significant harm, or there's a chance that they could really ruin some things, then or create some more problems, then I'd say don't delay. I mean, my tendency is to encourage people to wait till after the holidays if they can. You know, um, I don't know that it's a best practice though. I generally agree that the sooner you do something that is inevitable, the better it is, because it gives less time for an employee to, for instance, try and gum things up. If they anticipate things are happening, they may decide, oh, I'm going to go um, hurry and file a complaint with a state or federal agency. So now it'll look like there was retaliation. Um, and even though, um, so not to be mealy mouthed or anything, I always think it's best practice to do it as soon as possible. But if there's no reason, uh,
If those things aren't a risk that you've just outlined, then you could probably wait.
yeah, I mean, what does it harm the employer to wait other than those wages? And
Yeah.
it doesn't, you know, it builds a little bit of goodwill, I suppose. The other thing you could do is rather than wait, and this is, if you can tolerate it, just let them go, but give them at least pay through the holiday so that at least they're not suffering through the
Yeah.
holiday.
I think that's a good that I mean, I'm no expert, but that seems like a good solution. And then you're even giving the person time to look for a job while they're still being paid.
Yes.
So and think of how good that person will feel next Christmas. They'll go, at least I'm not getting fired this year.
You hope.
So all right, there we go. We'll make this the last because you've got to go here in a minute.
Yes.
We'll see. All right. So here's the question. I've had a really bad day today, and I could use some support. I work at a nonprofit religious assisted living facility. If we were full staffed, we would have 125 employees. Since I started almost 2 years ago, the most we had was 111. Now we are at 107. 3 employees put in their notice this week, and the resident care director and administrator are mad at them and decided to have me terminate them today. Why? Because we paid a Christmas bonus and they aren't working. And now we are not paying out their vacation and sick time, which should be paid based on policy, which says it's paid if you give a 2-week notice. So, just what's bad about this? What's fine about it?
Well, there are all kinds of issues with that. I mean, obviously, well, sometimes I tell my clients, hey, if someone comes and tells you they're gonna leave, and they give you 2 weeks notice, if they're in a position and you think that they might hurt the employer a little bit, rather than have them hang around for 2 weeks, you just say, oh well, we'll pay you your 2 week, we'll pay you, and you don't have to come in anymore. Now
Yeah.
that's not always practical, and there's sometimes reasons not to do that. For instance, if a person's a well-loved person, well-liked, and they're just leaving because they decided they want to move on or whatever, then you don't necessarily have to do that. In this case, where they quit, then or they give you notice, then you fire them, so you don't have to pay out their vacation or
Michael Scott
yeah,
of,
or sick leave. You probably wouldn't get away with that in Utah unemployment. The Utah unemployment division might say, or well, they don't have control over whether you can pay out or not pay out. The Payment of Wages Act actually says that if there's a policy that says you should pay out, that you should pay that out. And but there's all kinds of questions whether you could get away with not paying them out. I mean,
right.
it may be that the policy says, but if we let you go for any reason before the 2 weeks, um, then we
Yeah.
don't have to pay you out. And the fact is, if they were being disruptive and you fired them, you probably wouldn't have to pay them out. So,
Right. So you would need to really see the
right.
contract.
But I mean, it's a complicated issue, and it seems kind of cruel to do, but
right.
Um,
as it stands here, this doesn't sound like the best idea if this happened in Utah.
No.
But
Especially
to
if
really
it's
wait,
done in anger,
right.
it's always
right.
It's always bad to do something when you're mad.
Right. All right. Now we do have time for these last 2 quick questions because this doesn't really require much analysis. Alcohol at holiday parties.
No.
And what constitutes a holiday party?
Any any party where the employer is, you know, if it's at work, if it's a work sanctioned party, I would never do it. I know people do it and I know employers do it, but there's just so much risk to it. I just recommend never allowing it or providing it.
All right. Okay, good. Now, last question came from either Reddit or Facebook. I can't remember. It says, "Good day and happy holidays to my fellow HR professionals. It's the most wonderful time of the year. That's right. Nothing says happy holidays like an HR professional trying to create a happy holiday experience without offending anyone while not over celebrating anyone else. Anyways, my good peeps, I had a question. If you had an ornament that was representative of HR, what would it be?"
I I don't know. Perception of everyone else, probably the Grinch, right? But really, most HR are Pooh Bear, so that's what I'd say.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you, Dad. Thank you to
All right.
all our listeners, all 5 of you. Hopefully more. But we really appreciate it, and we've been having fun doing this. So expect
Yeah,
more from
thank
us.
you.
Even before the end of the year, we're planning on having one more, and then we'll keep it going next year. So thank you.
Thank you.